Hey everyone, this is Sportsman Pariente. I hope it's been an exciting start to 2024 for everyone out there. Normally I would have posted a video when the NFL playoffs began on my predictions for wildcard weekend. Unfortunately, due to work and recovering from a cold and other illnesses, I was not able to do so. But never fear, I'm back. And I thought I would jump right into the swing of things and start breaking down the NFL divisional playoff round. And we'll start with the Saturday matchups. And let's jump right into the swing of things. And we'll start with the opening contest on Saturday, and that is the Houston Texans going to Baltimore to take on the number one seed in the AFC, the Baltimore Ravens. Now, I don't know if anyone else predicted this, the Houston Texans being in this position, a game away from a conference championship game. I certainly did not, and I don't think many people did either. Nor did anyone see coming what Houston did last week against Cleveland, putting up 31 points on Cleveland's top 5 defense. CJ Stroud was carving them up left and right. The Texans defense was also picking off Joe Flacco left and right. It was a dominant performance. I think DeMeco Ryans is certainly in contention for Coach of the Year. CJ Stroud is proving time after time that he might be the next great young quarterback in the NFL. This is an up-and-coming team, and I think they certainly have every chance in the world to go into Baltimore and possibly win this game. Now, CJ Stroud has to play like he did last week. He has to be decisive. He has to play with confidence, and he has to not turn the ball over. I would give Houston an even bigger chance to win this matchup if Tank Dell was healthy. Of course, Tank Dell is not healthy. He's out for the rest of the season due to the leg injury he suffered back in, I believe, week 15 or week 16. I don't remember the exact date. So he's not available. So the Texans' offense will have to be mainly carried by Stroud, of course, Devin Singletary, Robert Woods, Dalton Schultz, who's really had a very good year. They acquired him from as a free agent from Dallas. I'm not sure if Noah Brown, he did not play last week. It's not clear if he'll play on Saturday. But the Texans really have to control the pace of the game. They have to keep this game close. And I'll explain why. Because the Texans have no pressure on them. So if they can keep this close and keep the pressure on Baltimore, because Baltimore has only, believe it or not, won 2 playoff games since they won Super Bowl 47. There's a lot of pressure on them. This is the second time in the last 4 years they were the number one seed. The last time was 2019 when they got blown out at home against the Tennessee Titans. Lamar Jackson, that was the second year. So the Texans offensively, Stroud has to be consistent. He has to get the ball out quickly to prevent Baltimore's blitzes from really affecting him. And the Texans have to really do what they did last week against Cleveland, keep them off balance with the running game, utilize the deep action pass with Nico Collins. He has to step up like he did last week. And they have to control the Ravens' running game. Now, let me explain that. Lamar Jackson, as we all know, can run the ball unlike any other young quarterback in the NFL, maybe outside of Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. Besides them, they're right up there as well. So Lamar can run the ball. The Ravens have also utilized Gus Edwards and Justice Hill a lot in the running game. Dalvin Cook will also be available, but we don't know obviously how he'll factor into the game, but he will be available as well. And the Ravens might have a big weapon back. From what I saw on NFL.com, Mark Andrews did return to practice on Tuesday. It's not clear if he will play Saturday against Houston, but if he's available, along with Zay Flowers, Odell Beckham, and Isaiah Likely, again, depending on if Andrews plays or not. Baltimore does have weapons in the passing game, which they have not had for most of Lamar's career in Baltimore. So what the Ravens do so well is when they get a lead, they can really wear down a defense with their running game, much like the Saints used to do in the past with Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara, what the Giants used to do with Brandon Jacobs and Ahmad Bradshaw, for anyone who remembers the Giants on their first Super Bowl run. The Ravens like to run the ball and control clock, which they can do if they can get ahead. And then if they get ahead, you force C.J. Stroud to start throwing the ball left and right. And the Ravens, who have, I believe, another top 5 defense, much like the Cleveland Browns, that's where they can tee off with blitzes, where their cornerbacks can really put pressure on Houston's receivers like Nico Collins. They can certainly double team Collins and force Schultz or Robert Woods to be the main receivers, again, depending on if Noah Brown can play or not. So Baltimore needs to get the running game going. They have to really play ahead. If they fall behind, if Houston can get ahead and really kind of put the pressure on them, that can be interesting because Baltimore is not the type of offense that, even with the addition of Zay Flowers, the Ravens are not the kind of team that are a very quick strike offense, much like Buffalo or Houston have shown over the past few weeks. Their offense is more of, we're going to run the ball, we're going to stretch the middle of the field with Likely or Andrews, of course, or Odell Beckham. So they really like to wear down the defense as opposed to the 70-yard, 80-yard bombs. That's not their strength. So if the Texans can get ahead, much like we saw them do against the Browns last week, where they really started after they fell behind 10-7, they started really clicking on offense. And once they started going ahead by 2 possessions, forcing Flacco to throw the ball, which again, even though he's had a great career, Cleveland's strength is more of the running game and all that. So once you force Flacco to start throwing the ball, that gets away from what Cleveland was good at, and that fell right into the Texans' hands. They had 2 pick sixes literally in the third quarter. So, as I said, the Texans have to really play with the lead to put pressure on Baltimore. They have to control the running game of Baltimore, Lamar, Gus, Justice Hill, Dalvin Cook, because if the Ravens can get their running game going and control the clock, they can, 1, keep Stroud and the offense off the field, and number 2, it opens things up for Lamar to throw the ball deep to Zay Flowers, attack the middle of the field with Isaiah Likely or Mark Andrews, depending on if he's healthy. And Baltimore's defense, if they can play with the lead, you have Jadeveon Clowney, who can wreak havoc on the Texans' O-line, which is... it's not a weak point, but it's not one of their strengths. And the Ravens' defense can certainly make life difficult for Stroud on Saturday. So that being said, what is my prediction? I believe that the Baltimore Ravens have been a juggernaut this whole season. We saw what they did a few weeks ago in San Francisco. They beat the 49ers by over 2 possessions. They put up over 50 points against the Miami Dolphins a few weeks ago. Granted, the Dolphins have, they had a melting pot of injuries on defense, to put it mildly, so we'll, take that with a grain of salt. But the Ravens have been, in my opinion, the best team in the NFL this season on offense and on defense. And I just think it's too much for Houston right now. I think it's been a remarkable year for the Texans. They deserve a lot of credit to be in this position. I don't think anyone saw this coming back in September. But I think this is where the Cinderella story ends, because I think it's just too much with Lamar, with Zay Flowers, with Odell Beckham, with Isaiah Likely. If Mark Andrews can play, he can protect Lamar in blocking and also help the running game out as well. I think this will be a close game, but I think Baltimore will pull it out and advance to the AFC Championship game. So my prediction is Baltimore 31, Houston 23. Now that brings us to the main event on Saturday, another game that really is kind of surprising. Not for obviously the San Francisco 49ers, they're the number 1 seed in the NFC, but their opponents. The Green Bay Packers, the 7th seed, go to San Francisco to play the 49ers. Another game that I did not predict at all. The Packers went into Dallas with Jordan Love, put up 48 points on the Dallas Cowboys, and the final score 48-32. Trust me, it was not that close. The Packers were moving the ball left and right. Dallas couldn't stop them. Micah Parsons was not a factor. Aaron Jones, I think the Packers were averaging 9 yards on the ground. It was kind of like, ironically, what the 49ers did to the Packers a few years ago when Raheem Mostert ran for was it 300 or 400 yards in the NFC Championship game. I don't even remember the exact number, but it was that kind of domination by the Packers on offense with Jordan Love and on the ground with Aaron Jones. Now, there will be some injuries in this game that could play a huge role. Now, from what I read, Jair Alexander did not participate in practice on Thursday or Wednesday, so it's unclear if he'll be able to play. He's been battling an injury and had to leave the game on Sunday in Dallas. A.J. Dillon has not practiced as well the last 2 days, so it's not clear if he'll be available to help Aaron Jones on Saturday against the 49ers. I believe Christian Watson, from what I've seen, will play. He just came back from injury, so he might be limited, but this is a very familiar matchup. Packers, 49ers. These two teams met 2 years ago at Lambeau Field. 49ers won that game 13-10 in what turned out to be Aaron Rodgers' final playoff game with the Green Bay Packers. This is the 4th time they've met since 2012 in the postseason. The 49ers have won all 4 of those matchups, and some of those games have not been close, by the way. So, can the Green Bay Packers pull off, in my opinion, what would be maybe the biggest upset in recent NFL playoff history? Because the 49ers are a juggernaut on offense. You have Purdy, Ayuk, Debo, Kittle. I mean, it's a who's who of offensive firepower. Christian McCaffrey, who will be available, he was a full participant in practice coming back from the injury he was dealing with. This is going to be a very tough ask for the Green Bay Packers defense to pull off. Now, they did beat the number 1 offense in the Dallas Cowboys last week, but I just want to make it clear. Green Bay's defense did play well. They did get a pick 6. They were able to kind of disrupt Dak Prescott's reads and all that with zone coverage, blitzes, and things like that. This is going to be much more difficult for the Packers defense, and I'll explain why. Tony Pollard and Rico Dowdle are okay, but they're not the type of running backs that can really stretch the field, much like Christian McCaffrey can do. 1, running the ball. Number 2, in the passing game with jet sweeps, curls, and all that. I mean, McCaffrey can basically almost factor as another wide receiver on the 49ers. And the Packers defense is in the bottom. I believe they're 32nd in the league on total defense. It's going to be very difficult for them to really stop McCaffrey, because let's say, we'll double team McCaffrey or put 9 in the box and we'll stop them. Well, that's great. You still have Kittle, who, number 1, you can use as another offensive lineman to help out in the running game, but he can also attack the middle of the field. You have Debo, who can also factor in the running game and also attack the middle of the field. You have Ayuk, who can attack you vertically or on slants or in the middle of the field or on 50-yard bombs down the field. I mean, there are very few weaknesses in this 49ers offense, and if Purdy can limit the turnovers, because that was a little bit of a weak point in the middle of the season when the 49ers were struggling. If Purdy can limit the turnovers, unlike Dallas last week, I believe Prescott had 2 picks and really could have thrown 3 or 4. it's going to be very difficult for Green Bay defensively to stop the 49ers. And that's important because the Packers offense, when firing on all cylinders, like we saw Matt LaFleur do last week, that was maybe Matt LaFleur's, maybe one of the better offensive performances he and his coaching staff have put together since Aaron Rodgers threw for 48 touchdowns and 5 interceptions in the 2020 season when they barely lost to the Buccaneers in the conference championship game. The Packers need to run the ball with Aaron Jones and use the play-action game. That's what was so effective last week against Dallas, because Aaron Jones was averaging 9 yards a carry, and when Dallas was trying to stop that, you had Romeo Doubs and all these other receivers open for like 20, 25 yards, and Dallas was like, oh, I don't know what's going on. We can't do anything. That's going to be a much more difficult task, one, because the 49ers defensive line is much bigger than Dallas's defensive line, and that's important because Dallas's defensive line, their major weakness, which we kind of saw coming over the past 3-4 weeks, has been the running game. We saw Miami exploit that against Dallas. We saw, obviously, what Green Bay did last week against Dallas. We saw Buffalo exploit that against Dallas. The 49ers running game, because Kyle Shanahan really likes to run the ball outside of the fourth quarter when he's had leads in the playoffs. So that being said, if McCaffrey can go off for 100 yards, that opens the door to Debo having a big game, or Ayuk or Kittle, etc., because then Purdy can use the play action and really stretch out Rashawn Gary and all the Packers linebackers. Now, if Jair Alexander can't play, and I believe Eric Stokes, another great Packers cornerback, he's also out, I believe, for this game. I could be wrong. It's going to be a really tough ask for the Packers defense to keep the 49ers off the board, because even the game last week, Dallas was still moving the ball up and down the field and put up 32 points. And the Packers, with Jordan Love, they really need to play from ahead or keep the game close, much like Houston can, because, again, all the pressure is on the 49ers. Green Bay has no pressure whatsoever. No one expected them to be in this position. So Jordan Love needs to, again, keep playing like he's been playing the last 10, 12 weeks. In control, use the play action, run the ball with his legs if he has to. He does that a little bit. Get Doubs and Watson into the game as soon as possible to stretch the field against Bosa and Dre Greenlaw. Because Greenlaw, Nick Bosa, and all those guys up front with the 49ers defense, they have a lot of run stoppers who can really control Aaron Jones, unlike what Dallas could. So Green Bay, the 49ers defensive line, they can put 9 in the box, which they might do, depending on if A.J. Dillon can play or not. They'll put 9 in the box, dare the Packers, okay, we're going to put 9 in the box. We're not going to make Aaron Jones beat us. We're going to make Jordan Love beat us, because we believe our defense, unlike Dallas's defense, we know how to control this. If Jordan Love can play clean and limit the turnovers, which he struggled with the first 6-7 weeks of this season, if he does that and the Packers can keep the game close, or if they can play with the lead, then the Packers have a chance to pull off this upset. They have to keep it close or play with the lead. If they fall behind by a possession or 2 possessions, that's an issue, because the Packers' strength is not just, we're going to just chuck back, throw the ball. That's not their strength. That's not what Jordan Love is good at. They have to use the play action to open things up, and you can only run the ball when you're either down a possession, tied, or ahead. Once you're trailing by multiple possessions in the playoffs, that goes out the window very quickly. So if Jordan Love does not turn it over, if Aaron Jones can go for, let's say, 100 yards on the ground, maybe 50, 60 yards receiving, along with Watson, Doubs, Tyler Kraft, and all those guys, the Packers could pull this off. But I just think on offense, the 49ers have too many weapons, and the Packers defense, you just never know what you're going to get with them. And I just don't see their defense in San Francisco controlling Christian McCaffrey enough to prevent Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, and all those guys from going off. So much like the Texans, I think it's been a very good season for the Packers. I think they've found their quarterback. I mean, it's unbelievable. You have Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love now. And I think he has a bright future in Green Bay. But the San Francisco 49ers are on a mission to get the Super Bowl that's eluded them over the past 5 seasons. I believe that stretch will not end this Saturday because I believe the 49ers will win this game and advance to the NFC Championship game. So my prediction is 49ers will win, and I'll say 49ers 31, Green Bay 17. So that's my breakdown of Saturday's divisional playoff games. I will later break down the Sunday slate. But for now, this is Sportsman Pariente. Please continue to subscribe to my channel. And to all the teams competing, may the odds be ever in your favor.